The turkey was perfectly roasted, a golden brown masterpiece sitting in the center of a table that cost more than my first apartment. The crystal glasses sparkled under the chandelier light, and the air smelled of sage, rosemary, and pretension. I stood in the entryway of my parents' colonial mansion, clutching a bottle of wine I had bought at a gas station for $12. I was wearing a faded gray hoodie, jeans that had seen better days, and sneakers that were scuffed. I looked like a cautionary tale. I looked exactly how they wanted me to look. "Well," my mother said, descending the grand staircase. She didn't hug me. She stopped 3 steps from the bottom, inspecting me like a health inspector looking for a violation. "You made it. And, oh, Alex. Is that what you're wearing to dinner? We have guests, you know. The Millers are here." "My washing machine broke, Mom," I lied smoothly. "Laundromat is expensive." "Of course it is," she sighed, a sound that carried the weight of 1,000 disappointments. "Just take off that hoodie before you come into the dining room. I don't want the Millers thinking we're running a homeless shelter." I took off the hoodie, revealing a plain white t-shirt underneath. It wasn't much better, but it seemed to satisfy her need for basic hygiene. I walked into the dining room. My father, Richard, was already at the head of the table, pouring a vintage Cabernet for Mr. Miller, his business rival and golfing buddy. "Ah, there he is," my father announced, his voice booming. "The artist. The dreamer. Tell me, Alex, how is what do you call it? Digital landscaping business going?" "It's going," I said, taking the seat at the far end of the table, the seat usually reserved for children or unwanted cousins. "Going under, you mean?" My brother, Kyle, snickered from across the table. Kyle was the VP of sales at Vance Manufacturing, our father's company. He was wearing a Rolex that I knew was a company expense. "Dad told me you asked to borrow rent money last month." I hadn't asked. I had asked if they had seen an old box of my books. But in this family, any contact was interpreted as a plea for help. "I'm managing," I said, pouring myself a glass of water because the wine bottle I brought had been whisked away to the kitchen, likely to be used for cooking vinegar. "Managing," my father laughed, shaking his head. "You know, Miller, I offered this kid a job 5 years ago. Junior logistics manager. A starting salary of 60 grand. He turned it down. Said he wanted to build something of his own. Can you believe the arrogance?" "Young people today," Miller agreed, cutting his steak. "They don't understand the value of stability. They think they're all going to be the next Zuckerberg." "And look at him now," my mother chimed in, taking her seat. "Showing up to Thanksgiving with a gas station Merlot. Alex, honey, if you're hungry, we can pack you some Tupperware to take home. I know groceries are expensive when you don't have a real job." "That would be nice, Mom," I said, keeping my voice level. "Thanks." I took a bite of the stuffing. It tasted like ash. Not because it was burnt, but because the toxicity in the room was palpable. To understand why I sat there and took it, you have to go back. You have to understand Vance Manufacturing. My father started it 30 years ago. He built it on aggression, cost-cutting, and fear. He treated his employees like serfs and his family like assets. When I was 22, I found an error in their supply chain code. I tried to fix it. My father threw the report in my face. "You write code, Alex? I build machines. Don't tell me how to run my business." So I left. I didn't just leave the company, I left the lifestyle. I started a software firm, Nexus, specialized in industrial automation. For 7 years, I lived on ramen. I slept under my desk. I didn't take vacations. I built an algorithm that optimized manufacturing logistics by 40%. My parents didn't know Nexus. They didn't read tech blogs. They read golf magazines and the local social pages. To them, I was just doing computer stuff. They didn't know that Nexus had gone public last year. They didn't know my net worth was currently sitting in the 9-figure range. And they certainly didn't know about the transaction that had closed last Friday. But enough about Alex's struggles, my father said, raising his glass. He looked flushed, happy. I have an announcement. A big one. The table went quiet. Kyle looked excited. My mother preened. As you know, my father began, puffing out his chest, the market has been tough lately. Manufacturing is a dying breed in this country. But the Van Cess are survivors. Amen, Kyle muttered. Last week, my father continued, grinning like a shark, I successfully negotiated the sale of Vance Manufacturing. I took a sip of water to hide my smile. You sold? Miller asked, surprised. I thought you'd die in that chair, Richard. The offer was too good to refuse, my father bragged. Some massive tech conglomerate. Shadow Holdings or something. Faceless corporate types. They offered 20% above market value. Cash. 20%? Miller whistled. That's a golden parachute, Dick. Congratulations. Oh, it gets better, my father said, leaning in. They're keeping management on. I stay as CEO. Kyle stays as VP. We get the cash, and we keep the power. These tech geeks just want the patent portfolio. They don't know how to run a factory. We're going to take their money and run the show exactly how we always have. That's brilliant, my mother clapped. We're going to be richer than ever. To the buyout. Kyle shouted. To the buyout, everyone roared. I didn't raise my glass. Alex, my father called out, his eyes narrowing. You're not toasting? Jealousy is an ugly color, son. Maybe if you ask nicely, I'll lend you a few thousand from the payout. Buy yourself a new car. That Honda of yours is an eyesore in my driveway. I'm not jealous, Dad, I said. I'm just confused. Confused about what? High finance. Kyle sneered. Don't hurt your brain, little brother. Confused about the keeping management on E-part, I said calmly. I read the acquisition contract. The standard Shadow Holdings contract usually has a restructuring clause, effective immediately upon closing. The room went deadly silent. My father froze, his glass halfway to his mouth. How would you see the contract? My father asked slowly. It's confidential. It hasn't been released to the public. And Shadow Holdings isn't a faceless conglomerate, I continued, ignoring his question. I reached into the pocket of my faded jeans and pulled out a black metal card. It wasn't a credit card. It was a security key card. I spun it on the table. It made a rhythmic thrum sound on the mahogany. Actually, I said. It's a holding company I created to manage my acquisitions. I named it Shadow because I like to work in the dark. You know, computer stuff. My father stared at the card. Then he looked at me. He blinked, once, twice. What are you saying? He whispered. The arrogance was starting to crack, replaced by a dawn of horrifying realization. I'm saying, Dad, I said, leaning back in my chair and crossing my arms. You didn't sell your company to strangers. You sold it to me. My father didn't scream. He didn't flip the table. He laughed. It started as a low chuckle in his throat and erupted into a full-blown guffaw, shaking his shoulders. He slapped the table, making the silverware rattle. Oh, that is rich, he wheezed, wiping a tear from his eye. That is, wow. Alex, I have to give it to you. You've developed a sense of humor. Delusional, but funny. You? Buying Vance Manufacturing? Son, the company sold for $42 million. Do you even know how many zeros that is? 6, I answered instantly. Technically 7, if you count the decimals in the wire transfer fee. Stop it, Alex, Kyle snapped. He wasn't laughing. He was looking at the black keycard I had spun on the table. He recognized the logo. It was the same logo on the confidential memos he had received all week. It's not funny anymore. Where did you get that card? Did you steal it? Did you break into the office? I didn't break in, Kyle, I said, taking a sip of the tap water. I walked in. Through the front door. Last Tuesday. While you were at a client lunch at the strip club on 4th Street. Kyle's face went pale. He glanced at his wife, who was sitting silently next to him, and then back at me. You're lying. Am I? I pulled my phone from my pocket. Do you want to check the timestamp on the security logs? Or should we just call Mr. Henderson, the company attorney? He's the one who facilitated the sale. My father stopped laughing. The air in the room shifted from amusement to a thick, suffocating tension. Mr. Miller, the guest, looked uncomfortable. He pushed his plate away. Richard, Miller said quietly. Maybe we should verify this? There is nothing to verify, my father shouted, slamming his hand down. My son is a broke, failed artist who lives in a studio apartment. He is having a psychotic break. He couldn't buy a lemonade stand, let alone a manufacturing plant. Call Henderson, I challenged him. Put it on speaker. My father glared at me. His pride was on the line. He pulled out his phone, his thick fingers fumbling slightly as he dialed. I'm going to humiliate you, my father hissed as the phone rang. I am going to have Henderson laugh you out of this room, and then I am going to kick you out of this house forever. Ring. Ring. Hello? Henderson's voice came through the speaker. It was crisp, professional. Henderson, my father barked. It's Richard. Look, I have a situation here. My son, Alex, is sitting at my dinner table claiming, get this, claiming he owns Shadow Holdings. He says he's the one who bought the company. My father paused, waiting for Henderson to laugh. Waiting for the validation. There was silence on the other end. A long, painful silence. Mr. Vance, Henderson said finally. His voice was different. Deferential. Cautious. Is the chairman there with you? My father froze. The who? The chairman, Henderson repeated. Mr. Alex Vance. The owner of Shadow Holdings. The color didn't just drain from my father's face, it vanished, leaving him looking gray and old. He lowered the phone slowly, staring at it as if it were a venomous snake. You knew, my father whispered to the phone. You knew it was him? Strict confidentiality clause, Richard, Henderson replied. Alex insisted on anonymity until the ink was dry. He didn't want emotional leverage to affect the negotiation price. Emotional leverage? My mother gasped. You mean, you didn't want us to know because we're family? No, Mom, I said, leaning forward. I didn't want you to know because if you knew it was me, you wouldn't have sold. You would have tried to guilt me into giving you more money. Or worse, you would have refused to sell out of spite and run the company into the ground within 6 months. I took the phone from my father's trembling hand. Henderson? I said. Yes, Mr. Chairman, Henderson replied instantly. Happy Thanksgiving. Same to you. Listen, the transition team. Are they on standby? Yes, sir. Ready to deploy on Monday. Good. Change of plans. Deploy them tonight. I want the servers locked down by midnight. Revoke all existing executive keycards. We have a security breach. Understood. Initiating lockdown. I hung up. The room was silent. You could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Tick. Tock. Tick. Tock. Counting down the seconds of their reign. You. Kyle stood up, knocking his chair over. You tricked us. That's fraud. You can't do that. It's capitalism, Kyle, I said calmly. Dad taught me that. Remember? Eat or be eaten. Well, I just ate. But, the contract, my father stammered, clutching his chest. We agreed. I stay on as CEO. Kyle stays as VP. It was in the verbal agreement. Verbal agreements don't hold up against a 90-page contract, Dad, I said. And if you had actually read the document instead of just looking at the dollar figure on the front page, you would have seen Clause 14. Clause 14, he whispered. The competence clause, I explained. It states that the new owner reserves the right to terminate any executive officer immediately if an internal audit reveals gross negligence, financial mismanagement, or toxicity in the workplace. I looked at Kyle. Kyle, I said. Last year, you fired a warehouse manager named Sarah. Single mom. 3 kids. You fired her because she was 10 minutes late, twice. So? Kyle sneered, though his voice shook. She was unreliable. We run a tight ship. You fired her so you could give her salary to your mistress as a consulting fee, I said. Kyle's wife whipped her head around. What? I have the receipts, Kyle, I said. Shadow Holdings does deep due diligence. We found the Venmo transfers. We found the fake invoices. That's embezzlement. That's gross negligence. I looked him in the eye. You're fired, Kyle. Effective immediately. Don't bother going in on Monday. Your badge won't work. Kyle slumped back against the wall, looking like he'd been punched in the gut. His wife was already pulling away from him, her eyes wide with horror. And you? I turned to my father. He looked small. The giant of industry, the tyrant of the dinner table, was shrinking before my eyes. I built this company, he whispered. I built it from nothing. You can't fire me. I am the soul of Vance Manufacturing. You were, I corrected him. But the soul has been rotting for a long time, Dad. You haven't updated the machinery in 10 years. You cut safety protocols to save pennies. You scream at your employees until they cry in the break room. I didn't buy the company to save you. I bought it to save them. So what? He spat, a spark of his old anger returning. You're going to kick me out? On Thanksgiving? After I raised you? After I put a roof over your head? You put a roof over my head until I was 18, I said. And then you told me to get out because I didn't want to be you. You charged me interest on the car loan you gave me. You mocked me every chance you got. I stood up. I'm not kicking you out of the house, Dad. This is your house. You bought it with the money you squeezed out of your workers. I walked over to the sideboard and picked up the turkey platter. It was heavy. But as for the company, I said. Yes. You're out. The board has already voted. I replaced them this morning with my own team. My mother finally spoke. She stood up, walking toward me with tears in her eyes. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of calculation. She saw the power shifting, and she was trying to pivot. Alex, baby, she cooed, reaching for my hand. Let's all calm down. We're tired. We've had some wine. You don't mean this. We're family. Look, why don't we sit down, have some pie, and discuss a new position for your father? Maybe Chairman Emeritus? Something dignified? She smiled, that plastic smile she used at charity galas. And for Kyle, maybe a second chance? He's your brother. I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had criticized my clothes 10 minutes ago. The woman who tried to pack me leftovers like I was a stray dog. Mom, I said gently. Yes, sweetheart, she beamed, thinking she had one. Do you know what a Shadow Holdings also owns? I asked. Her smile faltered. What? We own the debt, I said. Specifically, the private loans Dad took out against this house to cover the losses in Q3. The loans he didn't tell you about. My father closed his eyes. He leveraged the house, my mother shrieked, spinning around to face him. Richard. You told me the house was safe. He leveraged everything, I said. And since the company was failing, those loans are in default. Technically, I own the mortgage now. I checked my watch. So, enjoy the pie, I said. Because unless you can pay the outstanding balance of $2 million by the first of the month, this might be the last Thanksgiving at the manor. The silence that followed my revelation about the mortgage was different. It wasn't the silence of shock, it was the silence of a vacuum, sucking the oxygen out of the room. Mr. Miller, my father's friend, was the first to move. He stood up, throwing his napkin onto his uneaten steak. "Richard," Miller said, his voice cold. "I think I'm going to go. I can't be associated with financial instability. It's bad for my brand." "Miller, wait," my father pleaded, half rising from his chair. "It's a liquidity issue. We can fix this. I just need a bridge loan." "Ask your son," Miller said, not looking back. "He seems to be the only Vance with any actual capital." The front door slammed shut. My mother was trembling. She looked at the chandelier, the heavy drapes, the expensive paintings, measuring them not by their beauty, but by what they might fetch at an auction. $2 million, she whispered. "We don't have $2 million liquid. We spent the reserve on the summer house renovations. And Kyle's wedding. And..." She looked at me. The calculation in her eyes was gone, replaced by raw, naked fear. "Alex," she said, her voice cracking. "You wouldn't. You wouldn't foreclose on your own parents. Where would we go? The condo in Florida is too small. We can't live like normal people." "Normal people survive, Mom," I said, standing up and pushing my chair in. "I survived for 7 years without your help. You'll figure it out. You're a survivors, remember?" I walked toward the door. "Alex, wait." Kyle shouted. He was still on the floor, his life crumbling around him as his wife typed furiously on her phone, probably texting a divorce lawyer. "What about me? You can't just fire me. I have a non-compete clause. If you fire me, I can't work in the industry for 2 years." "I know," I said, stopping at the archway. "I wrote the non-compete. It's ironclad. Maybe you should look into retail. I hear they're hiring for the holiday season." I turned to my father. He was staring at his wine glass, defeated. The king had lost his crown, his castle, and his court in the span of an hour. "You won," he muttered, not looking up. "Are you happy? You came here to destroy us." "I came here to have dinner," I corrected him. "I came here to see if, after all these years, you could treat me with basic respect without knowing my bank balance. I gave you a chance, Dad. I wore the hoodie. I brought the cheap wine. I wanted to see if you loved me, or if you just loved success. I pointed to the untouched food. You failed the test." I walked to the entryway and put my gray hoodie back on. It felt warm. Comfortable. Honest. "Oh, and Mom?" I called out. She looked up, hopeful. "You offered to pack me some leftovers earlier," I said. "Keep them. You're going to need to save on groceries for a while." I opened the heavy oak door and walked out into the cool November night. The air smelled of rain and dead leaves, but to me, it smelled like freedom. Epilogue, 12 months later. The factory floor of Vance Manufacturing, now rebranded as Shadow Logistics, was unrecognizable. The flickering fluorescent lights were gone, replaced by efficient LEDs. The dangerous, rusted machinery had been scrapped and replaced with the automated systems I had designed. The noise level was down. The safety rating was up. I walked along the catwalk, wearing a hard hat and a safety vest. I wasn't just the owner, I was the chief engineer. "Hey, Alex." Sarah called out from the floor. She was the warehouse manager Kyle had fired. I had rehired her on day 1, with a 20% raise and back pay. She was now the director of operations. "The Q4 numbers are in. We're up 200% since the acquisition. Great work, Sarah, I smiled. Bonus checks go out Friday. Make sure everyone gets theirs before the holiday. Will do, boss. I walked back to my office. On my desk, next to my monitors, was a single framed photo. It wasn't of my family. It was of my first team at Nexus, the ragtag group of engineers who slept in the office with me to build the algorithm. My real family. I sat down and checked my personal email. There was a message from a generic Gmail account. Subject, update. I opened it. It was from my mother. Alex. I hope you are well. Your father is adjusting. The condo is cozy. He spends a lot of time watching TV. Kyle moved back in with us after the divorce. It's crowded. We miss the big house. We miss you. And we could really use some help with the HOA fees. Love, Mom. I looked at the email. I felt a twinge of pity, but it was distant, like a memory of a pain I used to feel. They hadn't changed. They were still asking. Still wanting. Still blind to why they were there. I didn't reply. I moved the email to a folder labeled Archive. Then I opened a new tab. A charity organization for underprivileged youth in technology. Donation amount, $2 million. Note, in honor of every kid who was told they were dreaming too big. I clicked submit. Outside my window, the sun was setting over the factory. The machines were humming, a symphony of progress. I leaned back in my chair, took a sip of my coffee, gas station brand, still my favorite, and finally, truly, relaxed. Karma hadn't just hit my family. It had liberated me.